Love, light, and blessings. Shamanic Hour Priestess here, and I wanted to make this video while the kids were having a snack and lunch and all that beautiful stuff. Because we have remote school to do. I was really thinking about this, and I wasn't trying to make so many videos this week, but Spirit keeps giving me all these different ideas. And this, every time I have my kids on a lunch break or before everybody wakes up in the morning to make these videos. So, okay, so this video is going to be a spirit chat, and it's going to be about what inspires me when it comes to buying decks. This is not a video that goes against collecting tarot decks. I have a high respect for those that have beautiful tarot deck collections, that collect them for the artwork, and things like that. So this is not a judgment video, nothing like that. So I want to make that disclaimer first and foremost. This is just answering my own question. When I'm reviewing my collection, which was smaller, it's gotten bigger, which I'm okay with, because a lot of them are, like I found a box of deck that I had put to sleep a long time ago. I'm talking about 4 years ago, so when I first moved here. And so that actually amplified my collection. And I find that I am drawn to those decks again now. So I have started working with them before I started packing everything up again. But anyways, when I started looking through my collection, I noticed like a theme. So when I was going through this whole wanting to expand my collection, because I was working with the same tarot decks year in, year out, and I wanted something different. I didn't know there were so many varieties, selections, and options available, because I didn't know anything about YouTube when I started buying decks. I only discovered YouTube maybe 3 or 4 years ago, like right before I started my own channel. Okay, I didn't even know there was tarot collections, tarot tube, any of that type of thing. I didn't know there was a witchy tube or anything like that. First and foremost, didn't watch YouTube before this or anything, other than when I discovered Carmen A. Scheid, and she used to do an angelic chakra work with the angels. That's when I learned about chakras, and then I learned chakras actually are a practice they do in Hinduism and in India and all that kind of stuff later on. With that being said, then I started watching Truth and Story, and then I discovered all the other wonderful content creators. When I started watching tarot unboxings, I was like, oh, there's all these different tarot decks available. So I went in with the intentions of having, let's say, a good 3 to 6 decks, working decks, for my professional readings, because that really is what makes up my tarot practice, is reading on a full-time basis for others. So what I mean by full-time, I do anywhere from 8 to 10 hours a day of readings. I do divide that into 2 shifts, but I do work in 8 to 10 hours. Just readings alone, not counting spiritual work and other things that I do outside of that. I do have my own full-time business, and it keeps me pretty busy. It sustains my family. It is, you know, it is how I support my children through my spirituality. So that's how I sustain my family and things like that, is through my spiritual working. So I wanted to find decks that were easily readable for me, clear, crisp pictures, because I do time sessions. I'm someone who trained on in-person readings and also with psychic readings on a psychic hotline. So in a psychic hotline, you pay for time sessions. I like that kind of format because I was used to and got used to reading quickly, getting those answers out, and that type of situation. So that's the way that I still read now. I read all types of questions, so my readings are not topic specific, other than my spiritual investigations, energetic readings, and past life readings, which are actually themed. Other than that, I do general readings on all topics: love, money, all that stuff, you know, relocations, blah, 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 blah. Like, I read on various topics on my psychic reading time sessions. So I don't keep it to one topic. It's whatever the client wants to know, and I will answer those questions. Okay. So I just realized, you know, coming from a background of cartomancy, that I love clones. That was one of my aesthetics. I realized that I wasn't drawn to modern decks, collage decks, decks that are too modern and they stray away from, you know, what I considered more traditional Pamela and Coleman Smith type situation. So that's one way that affects my purchasing. Another way that affects my purchasing now, because when I started buying a bunch of decks, I started to see that I wasn't connected to them. I got rid of a bunch of them, like I think it was a year ago or 2 years ago almost, when I did a big giveaway and I gave a bunch of my decks away and I gave them to local people, and I did a huge giveaway on this channel because a lot of those decks I never, like, I did work with them and they didn't resonate, or decks that I never connected at all. Because I was buying what I saw on YouTube. I was buying what everybody else seemed to be connecting with. And I forgot to stay true to myself. This is not a video against any collectors or anything like that. This is just my personal thing, because when I went into tarot purchasing, I was never going into it with the intentions of having a bunch of decks or with the intentions of having collections. I just wanted to buy working decks that I would work with clients. It wasn't until I discovered YouTube that I even started buying decks to do work for myself. And I do use those decks to do, like, I keep them separate, that kind of stuff for my client decks, blah, blah, blah. And I do have that type of situation. But I noticed that I was buying decks in that area, or saying they were from that area, just to have them as well. So when my collection started to feel out of control, when it started to feel overwhelming, I realized that I was buying decks just to buy decks. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it wasn't making me feel good as a person. It was, I have limited space, so you know, once you resell a deck, like, you're not going to get the same amount that you put into it. So it's a financial loss for me, because my decks are a business expenditure for me. They're a write-off for me. They are, you know, part of my business that I do on a full-time basis. So I went into it with the intentions of having a working collection. And so looking at recent purchases, I started to notice a theme. The decks that I keep that become working decks, either for self, that I really do use for self, that I've had the strongest connections to, have always been decks that either I would see a lot and I would feel something, whether it's like on my third eye, or I will feel like a spirit around me, kind of like, you should buy this. Some type of connection or calling to get it. Versus calling to get it just because it looks nice, but like not wanting, like not just because I want it, but like something bigger than that. And decks that I've had dreams of. One example of a deck I had a dream about, okay, was this deck. I've never heard of it before, but I saw the imagery in a dream. And so I started like just typing, because to me in my dream, these looks like children. So I was like, the deck that looks like little kids, like somebody just like took a color pencil and whatever the case may be. And I saw a review, it was on a German channel, the first time I ever saw this deck, and I was like, oh, that's the Hanson Roberts, because I've never, ever heard of this deck. And I ended up watching a walkthrough and I purchased it. And from the moment I got this deck in my hands, it was an instant connection. Okay, so that's one way that I'm called to buy a deck, is when I continue to see it. Like all of a sudden, I had a dream about it. Okay, I dreamed it, and then I started finding a bunch of walkthroughs of it. And I don't regret it, because to this day, from the day that I bought it years ago to this day, it remains one of my top 6. Okay, I've tried to so many times get rid of this deck to go use other decks, and that does not happen. Okay, another deck that I was drawn to from the beginning, intimidated by working with it, but drawn to, was the Rider-Waite. I'm going to use my 80s version that I purchased from the lovely Mary Farone, okay? But I was afraid to work with it because of the devil card, okay? And the fears of the devil that I had because of Christianity. Once I got past that, okay, and the nudity, okay, I started having such a connection with this deck that I went and bought various versions of it because I didn't like the platbacks when I first saw them until recently when US Games put back her font on the cards. I connected with it, and then I saw this version on Mary Faroon's channel, and I ended up purchasing it because I love this version the best. Second favorite is the original tarot. And I do love the version that Siren Imports makes as well. But this is like, I love this version of it because it's just so Pamela Coleman Smith to me. It's the one that when I got my first professional reading, she was using Rider Waite Smith. She was using the universal version, but she was still using Rider Waite Smith. And I was like, what is that deck? Because again, I never heard of this deck. I grew up with everybody using playing cards. And didn't discover tarot like this until, you know, I started reading professionally in the hotlines, being exposed to other readers, so on and so forth. These are the beautiful backs. So this is a deck that I have studied the most, that I will always continue to study for the rest of my life. If I could only use one deck, it would be this, because this is the foundation. This is what all the books are based on, and I have a connection to Pamela Coleman Smith. This deck, I have dreamed the spirits interpreting this deck and connecting it to Lenormand and other forms of divination. I actually have one of my main spirit guides that came through to me in a dream. So I've dreamt these cards. I know these cards like the back of my hands. I have such a connection with them. That's what drew me to purchase this. When I saw it on her screen, I was like, I need to get this. I know that I'm going to have amazing readings with it because I love the platbacks and I've always wanted a vintage one. So literally, when I saw her sell that, because I was praying to the spirits and I saw it, I went and purchased it because I knew that my prayers were being answered. Because that's another thing, like I'll pray that the opportunity for certain decks, if I'm meant to have them, will become available to me, and they do. And when I'm led by spirit to make these purchases, this is when I have the most deepest and profound connections versus when I just go and randomly buy something, okay? Another deck that I had a connection with because I saw a walkthrough, not wanting, but like, oh, this is not my aesthetics though. I saw this on someone's channel, I can't quite remember, and I purchased it, okay, Mrs. Cleo's deck, okay, and it is such a wonderful, wonderful reader for me. This deck is so good. I can talk directly to spirits, but there's just a connection that I have with this deck that whenever I just want to do a very spiritually based reading, so any of my specialized spiritual readings, spiritual court investigation, energetic readings, anything like that, like anything of high vibrations, it just seems like this is the deck that I pull from and I use and things like that, and I just get such amazing readings with this deck. It's good for the everyday stuff, but it's just so much more than that. And I love reading this deck for myself. Like, this has a very Lenormand-y energy for me when I'm using it, versus other decks. Like, this will just tell me what I need to know. So this is also a very personal deck that I do a lot of personal readings with, but I also do very high vibrational readings with. And I just felt like when the person was showing the cards, like I just felt I needed to get this deck, and I did. And it's just become a working deck for me. Like, I have not regretted that purchase. This deck, I was drawn to get it, and I didn't connect with it right away. So I was like, oh, maybe this was an impulse buy. And I got rid of it. Okay, so this is a boomerang deck for me, because then I ended up repurchasing this deck, okay? Repurchasing it because I felt drawn to it again. This has beautiful diversity in it, and I'm so happy that I listened to my intuition to repurchase this deck. I love the newer cardstock on this without the gilding, the nice gloss to it. It's way more softer versus the real cardboardy first edition situation. and it gives amazing readings. It definitely has become a work deck for me. And like I said, just spirit was like, you need to get this deck. So this is definitely a workhorse deck that I completely do not feel bad or have any buyer's remorse from getting. So yeah, I was happy when I got this deck again. I was like, oh, I should have put this deck away. So that's when I was like, I need to start putting things to sleep, because sometimes even when spirit leads you to buy something, it doesn't mean that you have to work with it right away. It might mean that if you put it away, you might be drawn to work with it later. Okay, later. Another deck that I was drawn to buy, and I saw someone posting, because I watch a lot of videos, but a lot of times I'm not drawn to buy the stuff they show, was this one. And then I was like, well, maybe this wasn't meant to be because it came all chipped and stuff. I ended up getting a refund for it. I ended up using black marker to highlight the edges. From the moment I got this deck, edged it, blessed it, consecrated it, even though it was supposed to be a new deck and it was actually used. It has been an amazing reader for me. The readings that I do with this deck, like, it's actually become, other than tarot, one of the highly used additional decks. Okay, I cannot get enough of working with this deck. I've used it for readings for myself, for others. I mean, this is such a blunt energy. Completely love it. Has a very old, wise type of energy. This is one of my most recent purchases that I did a walkthrough in my last video. Since getting it, I have not stopped reading for myself. I did test readings with it. I blessed it. I consecrated it. I dedicated it to who I need to dedicate it to. And I watched this on a walkthrough of someone's video. And I just told the person, like, I love this deck. I'm going to get it. This definitely was not an impulse buy, because I felt like I've learned the cues of when spirit's telling me to buy something. Okay, that's why I still watch walkthroughs. I used it to read yesterday and today. Wow, the readings that I've gotten with this one over here, amazing. I haven't gotten that type of feeling with any of my new decks. Okay, as when I started buying them impulsively, because recently I was buying a lot of things impulsively, and I was ending up, when I packed the stuff, I just put them away. I wasn't even caring. I was like, a lot of my newer decks were the ones that got packed up when I left 10% of my collection out and packed up the other 90%. This one definitely, oh my gosh. It's readable for me. It's clear. It's precise. It just gave me that reader's brain, that high vibration. I felt my third eye. As soon as I got these cards in my hand, it's not my ideal card stock or anything like that. There's just this unexplainable connection. An instant connection, like I have felt with Hanson Roberts and the plaid bags, and you know, these decks that you get them in your hands. Wow, wow, wow. Like, yes, instant connection. Completely do not regret buying this. It is a deck that I'm using on clients, myself. I love it. This is definitely going to be a workhorse deck for me. I am so happy that I bought this deck. I'm not saying that if you buy it, you're going to have that same connection, but for me, this deck really is what it really is, an intuitive, psychically, something in me triggers some type of reaction from me. I love this deck so much, and I'm so happy, because I've been trying to get more diverse working decks, but decks that will actually work for me, and this is definitely one of them. I love this Empress card. Look at this Nine of Swords. Like, come on. Look at that. Like, it's a beautiful reader. I kept just shuffling it. It does shuffle well. The weird division went away once I shuffled the cards. They're not cut evenly. Like I said, there's like some, it isn't the best card stock, and it's not like straight. Like, see how they're uneven, the edges. So it has a lot of issues that the Hoodoo Tarot had. But I feel like, for me personally, I don't regret the purchase, because the way this thing reads for me, I can see past the imperfections, and the artwork speaks to me. It's amazing, guys, amazing. So I have not felt a connection like this with any recent purchase in like so long. Okay, so long. So I'm really happy I got this deck. I'm so happy that I saw walkthrough, and I'm just so happy I got this. So it is beautiful. It is and oh my gosh, like I see myself in these cards, okay, in this one, and I see myself in the Queen of Swords, and I love the diversity. Like I just love all of it. Like, oh my gosh, love it, love it, love it, love it. Now, the decks that I bought more on an impulse, okay? I get mixed results from impulse buying decks. The Halloween Tarot was an impulse. I saw a bunch of people having the deck and loving the deck and, oh, it's Halloween and do-do-do. I have no connection with this deck. I'm not happy about my purchase of this deck. And I'm completely not drawn to want to work with this deck. I was forcing myself to work with this deck. And so this deck is going to go in the sleeping pile. I'm actually going to pack it up probably today or whenever I get a chance to. And I think I'm going to put it away for a while and decide if I will keep this or if this will be something that I'm going to give away on a giveaway, because I don't want to hold on to anything that I'm not drawn to use, and I'm not drawn to use this deck. You know, I can't with the Page of Ghost and the King of Pumpkins. Like I can't with that. Like if they would have just maybe kept the suits with their actual names, maybe, but I don't know. I just have such an adverse reaction to this deck. And this was completely an impulse buy, you know. It's a beautiful deck. The artwork is nice, but I just don't want to use it. This one was an impulse buy. There was no spiritual reason. It was just kind of happened to be on Amazon. I looked at walkthrough. I like the artwork. So this one was like a slow connection. I read with it. I was like, eh. But then I worked with it a little bit more. And I decided I'm not going to use this as a working deck, I don't think. When I started reading for it for myself, because I did some test readings with it, and I was just like, eh. I find that it reads better for me on some personal stuff. So more of a journaling type of deck. So that's what I'm going to use it for myself. To learn these stories, to study the stories that they're based on and that kind of thing. And just kind of go deeper with this deck type of situation. But not for the everyday type of readings. Like it just doesn't resonate with me. So I'm so happy because I bought this for the I like the diversity in it. So I'm so happy that I bought the True Intuitive Tarot, because it kind of replaced me trying to force this into being a working deck. I'm going to use this more as a personal reading deck, a study deck. I do buy decks for the purposes of study. Because I feel like it's such an important deck and things like that. But there's just so much going on. And then, you know, like certain cards, there's a lot of animal cards in the suits, which I know some people like that. I kind of like seeing people on them, but that's just my personal preference. I get that some people, you know, they like the King of Wands being like a bird or whatever, which is fine. This is why I want to do a study deck to see why they chose that. So it's just for me personally, like I just don't see this giving me quick answers. This is more like contemplating, and so I think that's why for that reason I'm going to use this more for myself versus client readings, which are a whole different thing, because I do read, I know I do fortune tell, you know, I do predictions, I do spiritual readings too, but I do everyday types of readings too, and this doesn't serve any of the purposes. Like I don't see me doing a spiritual court investigative reading with this, or like, so this to me feels more personal. So I don't regret the purchase because I'm actually excited to have a deck that I'm going to go and study further with. So sometimes an impulse purchase can work because I bought it for the artwork itself. So I did find a use for it. So that makes me happy. This, not so much. And then my recent purchase, this is also a deck that I bought for the mere wanting to use it as a working deck. And it's the Trippin' Tarot. I got 2 Fools and 2 King of Wands. So I took the double cards because they're literally the same. Oh my goodness, I love how that looks. You can see like the lines there. Look at how pretty that is. And then like, look at that. That's so pretty. I love the backs. Really nice thick cardstock. And this deck I bought for the purposes of doing readings with. I was thinking around spring and summer, this feels like to me. It does have some diversity in it. I love the redrawing of her deck, the coloration of this one. I feel an instant connection. I feel like we're going to get along beautifully. The Hierophant's the Guru. I love that. Look at this angel, people. Like, this is beautiful. And that's another thing, because I'm going to like, I decided to be a little bit more like less, you know, waiting on spirit to tell me when to buy something, when I'm actually really drawn to get something versus just getting things to get things. I'm like, it's going to leave money for me to buy more indies, because this is actually an indie deck. And there are some indie decks that I do, you know, that I do want, that I've been wanting for a long time, that I've been drawn to, but because I'm buying all these mass-produced decks that I ended up putting away in a box anyways because I didn't connect with them, or I wasn't drawn to work with them, you know what I mean? I could have taken that money and actually bought a deck I was more crazy about. So it just really made me think about my purchasing. Okay. And again, this is not anything wrong with anyone just buying decks because they want to collect it and they like having a huge collection. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You know, it's just for me personally, that doesn't bring joy to me. I don't want to do that. So I like to buy decks for like either for working for my, like to work, do readings for myself, or to read others, that kind of thing. See how there's diversity here? I love that. There's racial diversity. I just feel like that's so important. Again, love the coloration, and I cannot wait to read with this deck. It just feels so like spring, like February, maybe even Valentine situation, that kind of thing, getting into like that spring summer season. So that's why I bought this deck too, because I'm like, I'm not really drawn to work with Morgan Greer lately. Like I worked with it and I was just like, I put Morgan Greer and The Wheel of the Year, like I still have them out, but I put them to sleep recently. And so that's why I have these two, the intuitive, the true intuitive tarot, and this deck to replace those two as the main 6 working decks. Because I feel like it's not that I can't read with them, but sometimes that happens to me. I get in certain moods where even working decks, I put them to sleep for a little while because I want to work with different decks and stuff like that. So I'm just feeling like that kind of energy right now. I wanted to add to my arsenal of working decks, and these two feel like they're perfect. Okay, so being that I have such a connection with Rider-Waite-Smith in general, you know, I knew that I was gonna connect with this deck. Look at the purples, like this colors in here. Oh, ooh, I love this. And I love that there's diversity in here, and that it's kind of like the artist like still did a lot of inspiration from her work, but just the added backgrounds, the hair, you know, it's kind of like also their own take. Like look at this beautiful 9 of Pentacles lady. She's gorgeous. I love this 10 of Pentacles because the person next to it looks like a woman. You can't tell if that's a man or another lady, so it could be a same-sex couple, or it can be a man or a woman in this family card, and I love that. So This is just truly, truly beautiful. Look at all the greens and the pentacles. Look at this beautiful Queen of Pentacles. Oh, it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous deck, people. Just, oh, I'm loving all these. This deck didn't take long to come in the mail, by the way. Very wonderful customer service. I bought the deck within like the same day, I think, or the next day. I paid the extra couple of dollars for tracking, and they gave me the code, and I punched it in, and I got to actually follow my package. Being that this came from the UK, like it didn't take that long for me to actually get it. I just got it last night. So of course I'm gonna do some test readings with it and then work with it in the spring. But I just wanted to show you guys like how gorgeous is this. I've been wanting to get the Golden Rider for a long time because the people look melanated in that deck. So I feel for now this kind of takes away that itch for now. Because this looks like a very funky, vintagey deck in itself. It's different, copyright free, which has never really bothered me, but still. Look at, oh my god, look at the Queen of Swords. She's so beautiful. I want it to be blurry. And then my daughter, I was like, what is that? There's two hands. Look at the two hands in the Ace of Swords. I mean, the Ace of Wands. Oh, look at the worlds. I love it. I love this so much. And I'm going to show you the card that really made me decide to buy this deck, because I saw a walkthrough of it and I was like, this deck and I are going to have a good time. Oh, just gorgeousness. My goodness. Look at this beautiful Queen of Wands. And then we have the King of Wands. And I'm going to show you the card that I was like, yes. So the Lover's card was one of my deciding factors. Okay, love to see black angels all the time. And the Strength. Okay, but also, and just the diversity in itself, okay, but also this Devil card. It takes like the Vietnam War. Okay, that's all I got to say about that. A very dark part of our history. Soldiers coming home. What happened in Vietnam itself to the Vietnamese people, just all of it. It was a time that our country was in really big turmoil. So that Devil card in itself, war is it's really dark, and it happens all the time. You know, people forget that we're still in war now with the Middle East and other parts of the world. So very deep. I was like, this is going to give me some really deep readings just by looking at that card. But yeah, this is the Tripping Tarot, okay, by Tarot Collectibles. And, oh, I love it. They also gave me a personalized note when you buy it. So, original hand-drawn tarot decks, oracle cards, bags, and books. www.tarotcollectibles.com. And, yeah, they wrote a personal note to me when I got it and gave me like other things here to follow them on social media, and it comes with a bookmark. Like, I think it's cool. That's one of the other decks they have, which I think is so cool. So yes, guys, so that's it for this video. So in conclusion, I just find that when I wait on spirit, and somehow either by seeing the deck all the time, having dreams about it, or some type of sign, those are the decks that I've had the best connections with. And sometimes I'll get something impulse and I'll connect with it or whatever, But for the most part, I end up not connecting with it, and it just sits there collecting dust. And eventually, I end up giving it away. And I feel like that's financially a loss for me because I could have done something else with that money. That's just me personally. So, and I'm one of those people, I just don't like doing that. So, I just feel like lately I've just been going back to what I used to do, which is just really wait to see if it's something I should get or not. So I think I'm going to continue to do that because it's just nothing worse than getting a deck and you're like, womp womp. And then you have like no connection to it. You know what I mean? Like, for instance, I love the Martin Witch Tarot. Like the artwork is gorgeous, but I have never connected to that deck. Never. It really is a deck that I'm thinking of rehoming, you know, because I just got it because I saw it and I was like, oh, it's nice and I like the message and stuff. But I've learned that I have to also allow myself to feel like just because something's popular or whatever doesn't mean I have to get it if I'm not going to use it, because that's the purposes of me collecting. It doesn't mean I'm not, again, nothing about anybody else. So I just learned like sometimes it's just better to sit. Like I've been wanting the Trippin' Tarot for the longest of time, but I've waited and waited, and then I was like, I want to get this deck. And I touched it yesterday and I was like, yes. So I can't wait to charge it and everything else, but I want to show it to you guys and start working with it. So I'm going to continue doing that. I just find it beautiful, and that will be, you know, that will be the 6th working deck that I'm going to be using and things like that. So yeah, that's going to be part of my arsenal that I'm going to be using for the rest of this year into next year, because I like to work with 6 decks for a whole year when it's working decks. I've rotated between this deck, that deck, and the other. So it doesn't mean that I'll never work with the Wheel of Year or Morgan Greer, but I'm just not drawn to work with them like I was last month. But when I pulled it out to rotate it, I was like, wah, wah. I just didn't want to use it. And then I pulled out this guy and I was like, yes, like I had that connection that I was at one time feeling with the Wheel of the Year and Morgan. And that happens sometimes. Sometimes you just put them to sleep. It doesn't mean I'm going to get rid of the deck because there's always going to be a working deck. But sometimes, you know, you have to put something away for a little while, and Spirit leads you to work with other things. That happens. So pretty much the way I choose decks, that I find the best way to work for me is I have to see signs or I have to dream about it. And so I'm going to keep using that criteria, because when I do, I get the best connections. And then I'm like, yay, like I'm so happy I bought this deck. So I'm going to try in the future to be a little bit more cautious of future purchases and separating the want versus the actual calling to get something. I'm not going to say need, because I don't need, but calling versus just wanting it because it's something that I keep seeing or everybody's having a reaction to it. You know what I mean? Because a lot of decks that people have reactions to or that are popular, they're like, I've seen a lot of videos like everybody has such and such deck, and I usually don't have. Like a lot of people have the Marielle. I've never bought that one. A lot of people have the Wild Unknown, I think it's called. Never owned it. Like there's so many decks that I there's another one with the faces. I forget what the name of it is. I've never owned that one either. I forgot the name of the one with the faces. But yeah, a lot of the popular decks, I actually don't own them. So yeah, you know, so I just was never drawn to get them. Nothing wrong with them, I just was never drawn to get them. So yeah, so I pretty much am gonna stick to what I'm drawn to get, even if they're not always popular or whatever. You know, we all have our aesthetics, we all have our reasons, we all have our callings, we all have our things. So I feel like nobody's reason is better than anybody else's reason, but at the same time, you know, I just feel happiest with purchases when I actually listen to this the voice from the Spirit's my inner voice. So I'm going to keep doing that. I just wanted to share that with you guys. So yeah, much love, much light, much blessings. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm going to keep drinking on my Santissima Muerte cup for coffee. All right, bye.